Can you hear me?
Your mic is muted. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Okay.
All yours. You have 10 minutes. Good luck.
Okay. Okay, hello everybody. I've sort of come to talk to you today. We're talking about sort of an iPad project that we've been doing. Maybe the first thing that I should say is we are all actually doing this from iPads, so we might have some connectivity issues possibly. We've actually got a very high-tech system here because my iPad's actually hanging on the back of a stair, which is a bit weird, so that we don't have a sort of strange angle. Basically, the other thing I wanted to say is that it's quite difficult to use the chat window while also doing the slides from an iPad. So I think if the other people here in the project could type in the chat window, yeah, with any questions. So that would be great, thank you. The kind of reason we started this was because we sort of felt that with this sort of everyone's going to be more connected, and students are going to be using digital sort of connected technologies. So we felt that as language teachers, we really need to show people how to do this as well as possible. So if we look at the first slide, there's a little bit about the beginning of the project where we started basically with 4 teachers and iPad. Then it got bigger and we started using some minis. And then we're trying to introduce the admin side as well, so that hopefully we're going to start working with cloud systems and sort of maybe start combining some sort of more admin apps like registers, how we can combine that. And we've also got 6 more teachers. We were very lucky because the original team that started off, we had some paid hours to dedicate to this, just to sort of like play around with them first. One thing I want to point out here is that we decided to go for 1 iPad per teacher. So basically it's the teachers who've got the iPads as opposed to a class set, which I'll speak a bit more about later. So in about Christmas 2011, we got the first iPads, and the idea was to take them home and just play with them. So people get to know them, have some fun, etc. The other thing here is, why did we choose an iPad as opposed to other types of tablet? And the reason was, at the time, it was the best kind of projection that we thought. We teach a lot of young learners here, and so the apps in the Apple Store were more sort of safer, we felt, and also there tend to be more educational apps within that store. And the stability of the operating system is very good. You're less likely to get viruses, etc. But we just felt we needed to go for 1 system rather than try out others. So that's basically why we chose the iPad. And also they're very resaleable later. So this is slide 3. When setting up the project, we sort of, as I mentioned before, we figured that at our schools a BYOD, which is bring your own devices idea, with students using on their mobiles, like Sean was talking about earlier, as opposed to having class sets. So I think that's something to consider. What we really didn't want was sets of iPads sitting in cupboards without them being used. So that's kind of, we thought this would be the most useful way forward. Wireless connection, which people probably have experienced, is essential. At the moment, a very good one. At the moment, we're working on using 2. So the teachers will be on 1 wireless and the students will be on another one. The projection, how to project. Oh, Alex is saying I'm at 5 minutes already. Oh, wow. Okay. Right. So all the rest of this is other things to consider. Right. Particularly looking at acceptable use policies, because as students are, which we've got one here in Cordoba, and I think it's essential, as we're looking at digital literacies, what's okay, copyright, plagiarism, etc., training our students also to be working in a digital world, it's very important to establish, like not taking kids' photos, etc., to establish what your policies are. Let's continue. Okay. General findings, you need to be there's 3 articles below which explain better, I think, than I probably would do, about what the iPad is, what it isn't. You'll see on the slide, we found it's very individual, which is why teachers have got their own, basically. because of teachers' notes, etc. A laptop, it does not substitute a laptop. It's something else in itself. You'll see here the SAMRA model, which we're kind of like thinking about, that it's not just about the apps or a book and a board. That would be kind of like reducing the technology to basic substitution level. So the idea is to be as creative as possible and as collaborative as possible. If we go on, these are the advantages. Sean's talking about this in mobile phones in general, that you've got all these things on one device. And if we move on, okay. We talk about creativity. This is one of my students' things. It was so easy. It's done with Educreations. Basically, they did pictures of their family. Javi then, I took a photo of the picture. This annotation app, he is drawing around it as he's speaking, and it's recorded and can then be published online. Okay. These are the basic areas where we found the iPad working. You'll see, for example, teacher development. Using things such as Twitter, Zeit, Flipboard, which is over here in the grey on the left. For admin, teacher admin, if you see before student work, Alex and Nick are then going to talk about that in the next sessions. Vera's going to talk about the use of gaming, and Tim's going to talk about some of the pronunciation things. The creative side is what we think most interesting. Here we've got some of the favourite apps, so you can look back at that later. Here's an example of class preparation, some stuff Susan did, which is why it's very important that teachers take them home. Here's Sue's class experimenting with Twitter. We found Twitter's great for class and personal development. There's so much on there. Here's an example of some games that student did, the language that came out of that. Vera's also going to talk about that. They recorded it, they practiced the language, and then did the things. Interesting thing here is that the students themselves, there's no photos. They themselves are used to not appearing on screen for obvious reasons. This class you'll see at the Consultants E. This is where students, Sue's students made a class for my students. They then showed them the class. This is using 3 different apps. My little kids then did this. They went in, taught them that, and then they taught them how to make their own app. So I think that's a real example of sharing. And here, I think we're finishing. If you want to set your own project, we've found, these are our findings, start small, build up, little by little, understand those previous articles, what it is, a tablet, establish the school policies. Training, basically we found we've kind of like gone along working on our own areas of interest, training each other. It's been very much a bottom-up project, and with the teachers having the iPads. I think it's important that the teachers have them, as opposed to them being in hands of sort of all coming top down. And I really think it's important the teachers take them home, have them to do their preparation. There's something about responsibility here. I think if you don't feel that your teacher is responsible enough to be able to look after an iPad, then maybe they shouldn't be teaching in the class. If they're responsible enough to be in the class, then they should be able to have an iPad. And most importantly, people creating and collaborating together. And I think that's about it. Those are the people involved in the project. There's an reading group that Sean set up, and also there's an article there's an article that will be in the IH journal soon. And through Twitter, please join us on Twitter, and we'll hopefully start putting more and more of the classes that we've been doing online. So I'll finish.
Brilliant, thanks, Jen.
Sure.
Okay. She kept, as Jen kept saying, the other talks this afternoon in this hour are going to expand on some of those points. So next up will be Alex. So Alex, if you could